out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Timothy Pickety, how are thee?
Ryan, I'm, same as usual.
Great. Alive and here and ready to talk about horror films, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice rainy day here in Los Angeles. That's the mood we will be carrying forth to you listening on a hopefully snowy, rainy December day, wherever you may be.
Full sweatpants.
Oh, Tim's representing today. Anyway, if you didn't know, or if you need the reminder, this is Dismembering Horror, episode 69 of Dismembering Horror, 30 away from... Tim's just wants to say something so bad. If you guys could see the smirk on his face. Yes, Tim, it's episode 69. Do you have any comment about that?
Nope.
Okay, great.
I'm not doing it.
It means we're one away from 70.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about Sam Neill going insane, which is one of my favorite things to talk about.
Oh, it happens, kind of often.
Yeah. The trilogy of films that we haven't watched yet. Event Horizon has been a submission, so we do that. We covering this, and then we covered Possession. There's the Sam Neill going insane.
Absolutely.
Lovecraftian Cosmic Horror trilogy.
Hell yeah.
Okay, I didn't quite get. Can you finish it, Tim? Our intro.
Oh, where were you? Dismembering Horror, the podcast show where we talk about horror films and then dismember them by talking about what worked and what didn't work and things of note and that we found interesting. And I'm your co-host, Tim Aslin, and that's your co-host, Ryan McDuffie.
That's me.
And for all of you horror people who need a friend,
here we are. We hope you. A lot of this is one of those films we watched in the mouth of madness that I feel like is.
This was recommended to me before we did this show.
Yeah,
I was one of those things where I put it out to the world, being like, I need to find an actually scary movie. Who thinks that they know one? And this was one of the ones that somebody said.
This is one that I did watch a year or two ago for the first time when we were doing this show already. So I guess a year ago, but I think it's our first film that was a recommendation of that we went on to now talk about. I recommended this film, I believe.
Oh, really? Yeah. Interesting. Shit, dude.
Because
full circle.
Appropriate for this film. Where does it start? Where does it end?
Oh, I don't know.
We've been in this closet this whole time, Tim. Well, okay. I think that's it. We already mentioned the film. Anything else you want to mention before we watch the trailer?
I Febrezed the closet today. Just in case.
It's great because I can say it doesn't smell bad.
That's great.
It smells innocuous, meaning no smell.
Perfect.
So I hope it smells okay to you listening. And do you want to hear the trailer, people, Tim?
I do.
Okay. All right. Here it is. The partial trailer, at least for you, from 1994, John Carpenter film, In the Mouth of Madness.
This one will drive you absolutely mad.
The riots began because the stores could not meet the demands of Sutter Cane's novel, In the Mouth of Madness.
Cane disappeared 2 months ago without a trace.
You're the guy that writes horror books.
You can forget about Stephen King. Kane outsells them all. I need to know if he's alive or dead, and I need that book.
It's a setup. I just have to work out how it's set up.
Kane's writing has been known to have an effect on his readers.
See this? It's a map. This whole thing has been staged.
You just get out.
This is not reality.
It's all happening for real, Trent.
Wait, I said 1994 because that's what Wikipedia says, but this trailer says 1995. Which is it, Tim? Nothing's real.
Oh, man, I don't know.
That, Tim, is real. It came out December 10th, 1994 in Italy, and February 3rd, 95 in the United States.
The episode that you recommended this was Arnold.
Something to wash the taste out of our mouth for sure.
Yeah.
Which means that, if you couldn't tell, I really like this film. Enough, Tim. Here it comes. I want to own it. I want it on my shelf. It's a buy it for me.
Right in.
It's just everything I love. It's like, what can I say? Everything. I wanted to say it's everything I love about something, but lost the train of thought. It's
everything you love about Jürgen Prochnow.
Yeah. No, it's like we're always looking. I don't know. I always wanted like a Lovecraftian cosmic horror movie and hadn't ever seen one that does everything I want like out of that movie. I mean, maybe, if this one, the only thing, I still want one that's maybe set in like the kind of Lovecraftian era we think about would be cool.
Ooh, that would be cool.
But as far as like an investigation, straight up a super like hard-nosed skeptic, reality guy, and then just doing the thing of where it gets meta in the horror that you would want from like where we're questioning what's real and what's not with the character. Like that's just everything I want from this kind of story, and it did it, and it had Sam Neill, and he's great.
Yeah, that's fair. It's missing a couple things that I think I want.
I'll agree. I do have things that's like
or maybe that I expect.
Yeah.
In this type of story.
I liked it more. I mean, it grows on me. I don't know, but I think I just am like whatever things maybe quote unquote weren't working for me are easily forgiven.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a rent. I mean, just straight up rent.
Straight up rent it. As far as the 90s John Carpenter films, though, this is kind of
probably one of the better ones.
Yeah.
What are our other options?
I don't know off the top of my head.
That era, Starman. That's in the
Starman
80s,
was
dude.
80s.
I remember that. I remember watching that as a kid, and
yeah,
I kind of got it, but I don't think I really got it.
How would we summarize the film, Tim?
Let's see.
Well, it starts in the insane asylum. So we're going. So it's basically
true.
the story of wow, how did this guy get so crazy? How is this guy screaming with the rest of the people in the insane asylum? I'm not insane. And then we cut to seeing him totally. Well, he's a smoker.
It's
he's
his
stressed.
It's here's the thing. It's his retelling of his insanity. So right off the bat, he is a completely unreliable narrator. Mm-hmm. So that alone, I think, allows a lot of leeway in how we receive the story.
Is it also allowed a lot of leeway in the story? The fact that he may just be a character in a book written by a character in this film.
Is the character in this film? You know what I mean? Like, like, is that a real? Yeah, I mean, it's all fucking up for grabs.
That's what I love about it. But deliberately,
yeah.
That way that I love so much.
So really, it's him.
He's
telling his own story of how he went on a kind of
he's an insurance fraud investigator.
Yeah, an investigation to find the author of a famous series of books that has disappeared.
Novelist. Yeah.
And, it's sort of a mystery and put together the clues and track him down and find where he is. And then
I'd say for the first half hour, then it just becomes
I think it's more than that, but yeah.
As far as clues having any meaning.
Well, that's true. That's true. Once they get to the town, Hobbs.
I mean, what I love so much about it, what it's like a story about, is just sort of it uses that setup a sort of detective story, figure out the clues, but then is slowly just like, sorry, none of that matters in a world that doesn't have an up and down, that's going completely insane and is taking you with us. It's just, for me, it turns into like pure horror, just in that unsettling no hope of any hope.
Right.
Kind of horror, very stark and eerie to be caught up in.
I hadn't really thought about this in any in-depth way, but these stories always sort of feel at least in the same vein as the sort of Dante's Inferno thing, where you're just kind of going deeper into these levels of craziness. And maybe there's some like clear intentional like outward connection to that I didn't look into it.
What?
In other words, like maybe there's a 1-to-1.
In Dante's Inferno, literally?
Like maybe literally we could look at this movie and go, okay, so this section is this.
I don't know.
But I don't think
this
it wasn't
plotting
overt,
all
so.
seems kind of in itself enough that I don't think it has any overt framework that it'd be referencing.
But I like that story. I like this type of story a lot. We're not summarizing this at all, are we?
I think we did enough that we have to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what else can you say? He finds the author.
Yep.
Shit just gets nutso.
Yeah, once he finds the town that the author is in, which is the fictional town of the books, but is also maybe not.
Yeah, I would sort of broadly summarize it as this. He is given a task to find this author, and when he gets to the town, he effectively steps into the story, of the author's new book. Mm-hmm. And then,
which is called In the Mouth of Madness.
Right. And then we have to decide, as he makes discoveries in the town and tries to escape the town, whether or not when he escapes, he is still in the book, or if he is in reality, I guess.
Or if it's been in the book or some combination therein all along.
Exactly.
Great. Okay, let's do it. Our first section. Our first, what should I say? What's not our first section? Our first section that warrants a theme. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, here it is. What worked?
What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked for you?
God, what if every single thing we did on this show had a theme?
You mean our trailer section, our rating, our summary, our recommendations,
yes,
our next week's movie, our where you can find us, and then our sign off?
Yes.
Let's not.
God, that would be annoying.
I mean, I think it'd be funny. Anyways,
but I agree it'd be funny.
What worked
once
for you about In the Mouth of Madness, Tim?
Well, essentially what we were just saying, the construct of like dissolving reality and like a character kind of Alice in Wonderlanding. Yeah,
like it lays on the crazy so well, both to us and to Sam Neill's character, Trent.
I will say, how early on did you sort of key in that he might be in the story, that he might be living out the pages of the book?
As far as just something like cosmic horror outside of rational sense is concerned, as soon as there's that great it's a great scene of the guy who turns out to be the agent approaching him with the axe from the window, and it's the fact that like right after the guy that that Trent's meeting with
Charlton Heston? Charlton Heston?
No, in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
He asked him, have you ever heard of Sutter Cane or whatever? And then right before he can necessarily respond much to that, the guy breaks down the window and then asks him, do you read Sutter Cane? So that sort of like repetition, Sutter Cane, is just that sort of like crazy coincidence thing that clued me into like, okay, reality's afoot on some level.
Yeah, it's too coincidental, too kind of like...
Yeah. And then right after that, of course, then you get all, surrounding that glimpses of the actual monsters, and then that guy's eyes are like doubled over, two pupils.
I like that.
But I don't know, as far as then actually
Didn't
being
pay off in any way, unfortunately, but I do like it. It's a cool design.
I didn't think there was anything to pay off. What do you? It's like these are just monsters. That's how they look.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I thought that it would have some significance.
We know that it's a story of like humans getting taken over, and that's what they look like.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like monsters taking over, turning humans into monsters, and monsters coming out.
Right.
But then as soon as like I think we become aware of, oh wait, the town that's in the books is actually a real town, that's when it takes on that sense of, oh, he's going into the book maybe.
So my first inkling of that was when he bought all of the books and then like saw the covers and started tearing the covers and doing this thing. I don't know why I suddenly was like, oh shit, like he's in the book.
He seems like a character in a book, or you could say a character in the movie, which this movie turns out to be, because this movie is the movie.
Oh shit.
Yep.
Yeah. So all of that the kind of broad meta shit, like breaking down whatever you would call that, the structure or the narrative reality.
You mean what I just said as far as the movie being in the movie?
I love all of that, like, because it just keeps pushing further along.
We should clarify what we mean by that is that at the end of the film, once he's escaped and the whole world's gone apocalyptic, he wanders into In the Mouth of Madness at a theater.
Starring him.
Yeah, that's the twist. And it's set up
not
that
starring
already...
an actor playing him.
Well, already within the world of the movie, they go, oh, where there's already a movie being made, so it could just be like something separate.
Right.
But then that is the twist, that he's watching the movie we've just watched.
Would it have been even more twisty meta if it had been starring Sam Neill?
Wait,
they would have broken...
Oh, if it was starting Sam Neill.
They would have broken the actual fourth wall.
I don't know. Whatever they did worked.
I like it contained within.
Well, it is cool how they did stuff. I really thought it was interesting how they made us aware that like Stephen King exists in this world.
Yeah.
Like, that was sort of
this is
a subtle way to
so much a Stephen King like construct.
But it's a neat subtle way to sort of bring us into, oh, we don't have that separation of this is entirely a fictional world. This is a world where Stephen King also exists.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a smart nod to just be like, yeah, we know that we're doing that thing, but like, that's a thing.
So
it's called, I think there's a term for this. It's called like hanging a lantern.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so we all know where we're at.
Yeah.
And then we don't.
Exactly, because it lays on the crazy, as I said. My favorite, like, when you do feel more like you're just in a movie where maybe you have a chance of escape, and that's plotting typically, and that it is going to be reality. And you have, like, one of my favorite ways that lays on the crazy within all that, where we, like, don't think much of it at first. It feels like a typical movie thing, is the painting at the hotel, the bed and breakfast, whatever that is. Oh, it's so cool, Tim.
I know.
Like, it's so, like, that's, I think, what won me over when I was first watching it. Not just, like, it's cool. We see her seeing it change, like, actual, like in real time.
Right.
And then just the stuff where he sees it changing and, like, taps it and it's no wet paint.
And then eventually it full on changes to like the two people in the painting have become the like Lovecraftian monsters,
so
which I fucking love.
Yes, that's what specifically is what made me fall in love with this movie. Is like that's such a cool way to do like this cosmic horror thing in a film, is to like suggest something, because like how do you do sort of what is beyond any explanation or imagination, and show it? It's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so this was a really neat way of, in the spirit of those, which I think you'd, is spirit of Lovecraftian cosmic horror, how you do that in a film is you show us something visually in like a still image, in this case, that it's, and then to make us sort of close that gap of, oh crap, they could be turning into these.
Right. That's right. I had forgotten that there was sort of a middle version of the painting where the woman's face is sort of half monstery.
Mm-hmm. sinister.
Yeah, like it's got and there was a woman in the town who we see a few times who has like half of her face is sort of enlarged.
We see people like disformed throughout.
Yeah, but I mean, we see the same representation of that half face thing in real life and in the painting, which I think is cool.
Yeah. I like the ones when we see them amongst the homeless people and they're like chopping up people and eating their flesh.
Right.
But that just got me thinking when the painting, how that's like a unique way, not a unique, it's a way to do Lovecraft horror in a film, in a Lovecraft film. So other things that do that too were like the bus ride home when he says, the Sutter Cane says, "Did I ever tell you my favorite color is blue?" And then the movie is blue, and everyone's wearing blue.
And then Sam Neill has a flip out.
Yeah, which is just so much fun watching him do.
I love squirmy tentacles.
Yeah, like we're like coming out of under the door.
Yeah. Obviously reminiscent of The Thing.
Yeah.
Like felt basically like they did the exact same design for that moment, which is great because I love it.
Any of the other effects or monster moments come to mind?
I really like well, I guess it's not technically a monster moment, but like the effect of the young kid on the bicycle riding past and then like turning into older and then like it does get older as we go along.
He turned into like a weird witch man.
He turned into John Carpenter.
A weird witch man.
Yeah. But I love that thing of like, oh, I saw a thing and then now that thing has changed. Like we're on I love loops. You know, anytime you get that, like, I think what it does is the reason I like it is because we experience this type of shit in our own lives. Like our brains do this where like
that feeling
like deja vu, like that whole thing of like, wait, what did I just see? And then we tend to put things on a loop for ourselves, and we're trying to like recognize same patterns and whatever. And sometimes we can convince ourselves that we've seen a thing before when we definitely haven't. It just is like we're matching things that are familiar, and patterns and whatever. But like so when you do that in a film, it's cool to me that you can recreate a feeling that you cannot recreate in yourself, right? Like you can't have deja vu. You can't actively make that happen again. It's just this feeling that happens and then it's gone. It's like you had no control over it. So when a movie is able to do it, it's the closest thing you can get to recreating it, and it's an eerie as fuck feeling.
Even when it's happening so just immediately, once it gets to the point where it is less kind of happening at a lulling us in pace of repetition, but the specific the technique where he thinks he's escaping Hobbs End like 3 or 4 times, and every time he looks down at the road as headlights, we're just right back in there, and it's like, how many times does that have to happen to him before he like
changes?
Oh exactly.
Goes a different direction.
Right.
Well, he does ultimately, right? Like he goes, fuck it, I'm just going to go through them.
But it's just, again, maybe that's just the overall thing or not an overall thing, but something throughout where like I just love stories specifically where it's this kind of character being put in this situation. Yeah. The most like what I already say, like when he goes like, this knocks the table is reality, and has these rants about that, and like even to himself when we just said when he's driving out on the highway, he's like, he refuses to think, oh yeah, I just ended up back in the town. That's all that happened. You know, like I just took a wrong turn and I'm here again.
To me, the thing that is so pleasing about all of that, and any movie that can kind of execute this type of stuff well, is that it is the closest thing we also have to feel the feeling we have in our own dreams, where like everything's kind of movable. Like, you know, like in a dream, I don't know, what's a dream I had recently? Who knows? But, you know, you can be in one room and then it's just another room at the, you know, in the next moment. And that feeling of essentially you're never on stable ground. If you can get that coming across in a movie and retain some sense of like it making sense. As much as it can. Well, like you still have something to hold on to enough.
You have a character's emotional state.
Right.
Like we have him to hold on to.
Which is exactly what you experience in dreams, right? Like you kind of only have your own perspective or state.
You're you.
To hold on to, and everything around you can just morph and change, and like there are no rules, and like a lot of it is just emotional based, right? Like you know, whatever, being chased or something in a dream, like can mean like it's less about the act of the chase and more about the feeling that it gives you to be chased, right? Because shit changes throughout. It's like, you know, you're on a building and then you're in water and then you're fucking whatever. It doesn't matter, but you still are having the feeling of the thing that's happening in the dream. And that, I think you're right. Having this central character that we're anchored to, but is totally untethered in to any world is really fun and fucking, you know, that's why it's scary.
Right. And represents that side of us that wants certainty.
Yeah.
And to see him get everything that's not certain.
Right.
I don't know. And I think it's satisfying to me, like, what I love just in stories like this in general is like, I'm someone who at least likes to think I'm like very open-minded. I do well in emergency situations or when inexplicable things happen. I'm the first just to kind of like smile at it. I guess I don't know. I'm kind of like, well, what are you going to do?
Right.
I don't know what my reality is anymore. Then, okay, well, then that's all right.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just really satisfying and fun to me to see like people who are on that other end of the spectrum, which, you know, I still have, of course, but like just being confronted with that, just because I always do want to shake people who, you know, are the exact people who are like, this is reality and this is not, and this is exactly the way the world is. It's that what we always come back to in the show about being a true skeptic.
Certitude.
Yeah, certitude. A lot of people who call themselves skeptics are actual certitude-ists.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was a word we've been looking for to make up. I think that's helpful. We have that now.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Where do we go from here?
More specifics to throw out? I mean, check them off.
Well, one question I guess I have. It's not. It works for me, so I'm not. It's not a criticism. It's sort of just a world question. So we're effectively, let's say, we're reading the book essentially by watching this. Well, I mean, really, what we're doing is watching the movie that is the literal pages of the book.
Okay.
Right. Like that's the conceit. So I guess it makes sense that at times we leave. What is Sam Neill's character's name? I forget.
John Trent.
Yeah, God. So we leave John a couple times, and we're just with the other woman,
Linda Stiles, who we call each other last names, Trent and Stiles.
That's right. So, like, remember the scene where Stiles has gone back to the church, and she's seen the little kids, but Trent is not seeing the little kids.
Yeah.
Which I think is sort of, I mean, what it's doing is it's adding this element of just complete, like, uncertainty. Like, where we're like, well, what is real and who's seen what? And I just think it's a really interesting device.
We leave whose eyes, like, we leave.
Right.
Yeah, whose eyes we're seeing things through.
And it's okay because of the sort of broad conceit.
Well, it puts us more into tricking us into, this world is an actual world.
Right. So that's sort of my point. And I think what works so well is that it adds to that confusion and that sort of like, we don't really know what the fuck's what. But even she is having an experience, even though she's a part of the story.
She turns out in a certain reading of the movie that isn't real at all, because Charlton Heston, the boss, the publisher, who sent him with her, that I love so much, where it's like, wait, what are you talking? Like, we think we maybe have some semblance of reality once he escapes the town. like maybe he's like leaving it's evil, but then as soon as he gets back to the publisher Charlton Heston, he's like, wait, I never sent you with any woman. I don't have what was her role?
She was like an editor or something, right? Yeah. I love, speaking more to her, I love when we meet her, how fucking weird she's being. Like, like she's just floating around behind him. She like comes in quietly without saying anything and just stands behind him.
Like, you really don't think she's going to be a main character.
No, I know. And then she's like doing this weird thing with her glasses where she keeps like kind of trying to close the folds of her glasses, but like with her mouth, but like, or the side of her face, but she like doesn't do it.
Whatever she was doing.
All of those mannerisms and weirdness. Initially, I was like, ugh, annoying actor things. But then I'm like, now in hindsight, you go, oh no, they were very specifically trying to be weird. I mean, and like her standing next to him, like super close when he lights a cigarette and then coughing. It's like, don't stand next to the guy who's lighting a cigarette then if you don't like cigarettes. No, but it's all to this point of like just the weirdness.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a little different. It worked for me, but just as making it more like she was an interesting person who just was kind of quirky. Like, I just liked, I don't know. I thought it was working for me as building a character. Like, I would stand right next to the person lighting a cigarette. Make a point. You shouldn't just be lighting up in your face without saying anything.
Well, we think that now.
Why should she move? She's ahead of her time then.
Yeah. But I like that what I was sort of saying before is we get her alone a couple times and she like interacts with the kids and that scene, fucking weird kids, man. Weird kids are weird.
Yeah.
In and of themselves.
That was I read John Carpenter's it was like the top 15 things from the commentary of this movie. And he just said something about kids love to play evil.
Yeah.
Like kids will have fun playing monsters.
Yeah, definitely. So like her standing outside of the church and the kids like throw the ball at her and like have this weird interaction where she's like, "Where's your mom?" And they're like, "You're our mom."
Yeah.
It's just like, what the fuck
is
how
going
about
on? That? Just quotes throughout this movie that just sort of like are, from the people who have already been indoctrinated into the evil of the book.
Sure.
Where it's just like, that doesn't make any sense, but it sounds like it makes sense to them. So it just sounds like they are speaking from a place of that unknown cosmic horror where the rules of reality are different.
Well, so this points at a bigger thematic thing that I really like, and it is the idea of susceptibility and like how we as people, the what do you call this? It's like the groupthink sort of mentality where suddenly you get on, like, because it's trending to be into Game of Thrones, like everybody gets in on it, and then everybody's like talking about that thing,
well, to
and
this
like getting
extent though that
wrapped up in it.
That world is real, like, to people. Like, you can talk about Game of Thrones, like, well, we were just talking about freaking Star Wars,
exactly.
Like,
so like I love the open-endedness of like how far can that go, and can it go too far?
Right. So I agree entirely.
And I think the answer is yeah.
And I think,
that's why cults exist. Right? Like,
but it's so smart to the way you do that in a movie is have that, to explore that theme by having it be about a fiction writer. Mm-hmm. Because then that's doing exactly. It's a story about people getting sucked into a fiction, or the fiction spilling out into their world, and where does one start and where does one end? Well, and I think that that horror that I think you're getting at that lies in there, where you say it can take it too far, it's when we almost value those fictional realities like more than our real ones, and that's where it feels more like escape than enrichment. Like, we're saying, I just wish I could live in Star Wars, and I like only would read,
I would frame it, and I think that this is a theme that is in a lot of his films, is more of the idea. I mean, this is sort of the dark or shadow side of what we're talking about. It's more of an infection. Mm-hmm. and like how we get infected by things.
Right, because it's how it spreads essentially in this film.
Which is super terrifying, right? In any context, infection is terrifying.
Well, yeah, to have it on that level too is so eerie of like, you read the books, you know, you might go crazy. It's like, well, what are you talking about? It's just a book. Like, I didn't read it. I know, it's like how he says in the movie, I know this is a book. It's not reality. It's not scary, therefore.
And that's the same idea as like, you know, what do you mean I have to wash my hands? My hands are clean. It's like, yeah, but there's stuff you can't see, dude. Right? Like, you don't know what is on them.
Yeah.
But like, you have a certitude about your hands being clean because you can't see it.
And it is like, it is actually real to an extent, though. Like, I am, people say, you know, who don't like horror movies, how do you watch them all? Like, aren't you scared? Da, 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 da. And yeah, and I do always, you know, this is where I'm like Sam Neill's character, where I'm like, no, I know they're just movies kind of thing. But yet you look at the power of whatever it is, a horror book, a horror movie, and like, you think you're, you know, let's say you're given a nightmare from them, or like, you know, after everyone seeing Hereditary and like saying, did you say you had weird nightmares?
Oh,
like,
definitely.
So that right there, Tim, that's proof that like, no, you don't have a separation. It worked its way into your conscious and subconscious and like affected like dreams are a reality you experience. Yeah. Like, they directly influenced that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Like, you weren't able, you know, just to say this is a movie.
I think that you can also kind of attribute this to like that feeling, that idea of infection, or it's such a primally rooted fear. Because it's the same reason why like vampires are scary, right? Like, that's a version of being infected. Like, it's why super religious people are freaked out by the devil, right? Because they feel like, oh, I'm going to be infected by this force, this malevolent force, right? That whole construct of a foreign body getting inside you and manipulating your ability to exist, at least the way you want it to.
It's horrifying because, like,
it's super scary.
It's scary partly because, like, we were just talking about how we have the characters always in films like this, and in our emotionality in our dreams. Like, we were talking about the emotions at any given time is your tracking point. So the idea of like getting diseased and infected, it's like that first person perspective is usually our safe point that we already have. So the thought of that, even that like first person perspective of like our individuality, our emotional state is somehow fluid or rocky too. There's where the horror lies, I think.
You know what it sort of makes me realize too? We evolved as a species with this implicit fear, because it's a way to protect yourself, right? Being afraid of these things keeps us alive.
Always something in the darkness that wants to kill us,
right? And so that's why I think you can always boil the best horror down to these very, very primal things of like, you know, well, essentially life and death, right? Like ways to stay alive, and putting the characters into a position to face those threats is the fundamental, like, most important thing of good horror. And what's so cool, I think, about getting, you know, getting where we get in certain movies, away from the literal version of that and into something like this, where it is so just sort of broadly thematic. It's still the core thing, right? It still is facing this, you know, mortality based on, you know, infection or whatever you want to frame it as. But like the story that's created to service that theme is so fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And amazing that that's what we can do. We can weave in just crazy shit. And the imagery all is sort of built around these really primal things. It's like, why are tentacles scary? It's because they're a part of that same construct.
Yeah.
Right? Like, tentacles are foreign. They're not what is normal to us. So they're an implicit threat
Or how
as
about,
well.
like, one of my favorite visuals in it was, you could say a non-visual, but when the realm, the door to the realm opens up and it's just blackness. Like, what else would it be?
Yes.
Like, that's what's so terrifying. And
Right.
he looks through it and, sees whatever he sees. Like, that's another way to do good cosmic horror in a film, is just something is existing in this chasm of blackness.
It's like why in fucking Under the Skin,
I haven't seen it.
Oh.
Don't tell me.
Dude. You read the book, too.
Okay.
I think I recommended the book at one point.
Also, like...
Man. What you're talking about, though, is so good.
Cool.
I just in anything.
Yeah.
The feeling of, like, the chasm or the black nothingness and like stepping into that in some way is
also,
always so fucking cool.
What made that work so well too, in this film specifically, was that the door before it opens, the wooden door, is slimy and pulsating. It's like, how perfectly Lovecraftian is that to have it? It's like something, first of all, something that's supposed to be solid isn't.
Yeah.
And that's just like, this film in a nutshell,
Right.
kind of thing. And then also, but just this visually, aesthetically, that it's slimy and like old wood, and the way it's pulsating.
Black ooze is always just we know that we shouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
That's why
Get the guy from the stuff to just eat it out of the ground.
I was just going to say, that's why you're a little more forgiving that he eats the white ooze because it's not black. Yeah. So all of these things I think it is also a big part of Carpenter's aesthetic always.
Yeah.
He's really good at leaning in on those designs.
Yeah. I like, you mean like physical designs?
Yeah. The visuals and the physical, tactile nature of the design in almost all of his movies are so fucking pleasing.
Like the monsters that we do see in this are straight out of The Thing, which makes sense because that's cosmic horror too.
Yep. Literally.
I love that when he's getting chased down the hallway and it's just that wood shot where it's like we get just the perfect darkness glimpse of all the monsters chasing him. It's so good.
Yeah.
I love that.
That hallway is great. Is it me or is every fucking horror design from 1976 until 1996 just H.R. Giger? Was he the only fucking person around? Fucking hell.
He certainly made a indelible mark.
No doubt. What'd be cool is I watched a documentary on him at some point. Oh, maybe it wasn't on him. No, I think it was.
There is one on him. I've seen it.
But what? I'd love to see the stuff before him that was his influences.
Yeah.
I wonder what that. I bet we could track it down. But yeah,
Side note.
I love all that shit. Regardless, I don't care that it feels like his stuff. It's always so fucking good.
The trajectory of the old woman at runs the hotel.
Yes.
What's that woman she's like Happy Gilmore's grandma? Who's like the old woman and everything.
I can't remember her name.
But just that's so great. Fun because she's a good example too of just his a baseline point for his sanity, where she's just a sweet old woman. She wouldn't hurt and then she ends up being first the in between is that she has her naked husband handcuffed to her ankle, and then she's kicking him to be quiet or whatever.
Oh man!
But then that she's an actual squirmy thing monster.
Yes. Fuck yes. By the way, I said when John Trent sees that, he kind of unnaturally slowly backs away from it. I was like, if I saw that shit, you couldn't get me to move fast enough to get the fuck out of there.
We gotta write Tim into one of these movies.
Yeah.
See his character.
There'd be a lot of yelling.
Of course.
Flip out central.
One, when you're touching on its thematic core ideas, just one angle of all that we didn't mention yet. We're talking about like, you're talking about Game of Thrones, Star Wars as like, it's a reality that's created that's like almost bigger than us or exists in all our imaginations, so it becomes real then. But the idea, and that's fun how it explores in this film, of like that art or that imaginary world is bigger than the artist who made it, of course, and how that is also something outside of the artist. Because the Sutter Cane in this, who's great, that guy who plays him, who's like in Dust Boot and stuff.
Yep. Dune. He's King Atreides.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's perfect casting. I love his first reveal where the door opens and his hair is just like, oh, he looks exactly like a horror author.
Yeah.
But how he is sucked into he's sucked into the world of the book, the evil, like, at some point along the way in his own way, where it starts, where it ended, we don't know. But I don't know where I'm going with it, but just that was interestingly explored for me as far as like the author's role in all this sort of being almost inconsequential. He's a character.
He's a red herring almost.
He's like a character. Yeah, he's a character in the story that he is writing. What?
Well, and I think that kind of lends a little bit of credence to the idea that this whole thing is just a construct in Sam Neill's head. Like that. Like, I think you could watch this and say that none of this story is real except for Sam Neill being a crazy guy, a guy who's institutionalized. I feel like, though,
I see where you're going with that, but I feel like that whole argument is just kind of not... It's not almost... It's invalidated because it is a movie, like...
Yeah, you're right. There would need to be an added something to like solidify that.
And that's the big horror for me.
Like we'd have to see him at the end just being a dude on, tranquilized up.
Right. That's part of the horror is I think like even in films like this, we want to be able to say, oh, it was all just in his head, as to take that comfort again. But like it doesn't. It's actually
one of the things I both like and don't like. So it would fall into both categories for me. But I do like it, so I will say that.
What is more horrifying, really?
Right.
Like, you can't go, oh, it doesn't allow for that sort of separation from the film that we like to have so much. Of being able to say, oh, I figured it out,
Right. I just had thought of another example of a movie that does that, and now I've lost it. Shit, I'll think of it.
Part of just like, just talk about how, this film, we already kind of said like the structure is it's set up like it's just a mystery you kind of want to solve with him.
That was another thing I want to mention that I really like. Go on.
Oh,
the mystery.
Well, and then how that but then how it turns into what is for me just like a true horror film of just something so with no chance of escape from this world where there's no happy ending, like, and it, and it just sort of feels scary to watch it, play out accordingly. But it like that really kicked in when the Styles, the woman, when she walks into the church for the first time and she's just like, it feels like, that's normally where I want in the movie where it's like, oh, she's going to be saved somehow, or, she's going to save herself. Sam Neill's going to save her. Something's going to happen. It feels like the thing in the movie, the part where you go, oh, here's where one of the characters gets in trouble. And now the rest of the movie is about saving them. But here it's just about, here's the first one who's gone. And that to me is just sort of that unsettling, like where it goes against your instincts of what feels safe for you in a movie, and you're just along for this ride and have to just accept it. It just it gets to me. But that's sort of where it kicked in for me, was her getting entrapped.
Oh yeah, definitely. I really like when this is such a little thing, but when they're in the room, the like hotel room, whatever, and Sam Neill's having his whole thing about like this is real, and he's like tapping the desk, and he's like, we're not in a fucking book, we're not in the pages of the book, that's stupid. Also, you know, he opens the book and he's like, see right here, it says that outside this window there should be a church with like the gold onions on top of it and whatever. And she goes, and he opens the window and there's nothing there. And she goes, you didn't read close enough.
Yeah.
And opens the other window, and she's like, it was facing west, and there's the church, and it's like, whoa, dun dun.
And I
dun.
said, take that, Sam Neill.
Yep.
Because that's exactly that catharsis of like, see, Sam Neill, like,
I love shit like that. The other thing I really love, these are tiny little nuanced things, but man, a clue and like the cutting out the pieces of the fucking covers of the book.
Yeah.
And it being a map. Oh, I love shit
so
like
fun.
that. Like anytime you get that, because I love a mystery and I love a treasure hunt. Like
That's
those
something
are the fucking best.
That scratches the itch for me of what I want from a Lovecraftian story too. It's just like putting together it threw me off because he's literally putting things together, but putting together but you want that. You want it to be like a physical thing.
Yes.
Oh, like what's the secret of this like book, you know, the secret pages or a way to turn it upside down and it does this, whatever.
Like Goonies.
Yeah.
Like it's great.
Yeah. So fun. People put intention into it. So yeah, I mean, the specific moments I want to mention again, just how great that was when the man approaches with the axe.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing quite like it in another movie where it's just like you have the quiet scene of them talking and then this kind of like the emotion it strikes where it's like tickles you, but it is horrifying too, of just his slow approach. And everyone's outside like, whoa, get out of the way. This fucking dude marching with an axe.
Yeah, the people right in front of the window falling over themselves to get out of there is
something
great.
Just is so good at that. Then we just think, oh, this is some random dude, but he turns out to be the agent, Sutter Cane's agent.
That's right. Yeah.
That just was that extra layer of like, oh, you know, and it sort of gets to our own prejudices of being like, oh, I was able to justify this or explain this by it just being a random, crazy, probably homeless person, crazy person.
Right.
So then to all of a sudden have that, no, this was Sutter Cane's agent.
Yeah.
Like, that was good.
Yep.
I love.
You have more.
I love that
going.
the stakes were the end of the world, the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like kind of like this is actually the third in what they unofficially call as apocalypse films.
Right.
First being The Thing, then Prince of Darkness, then this. Yep. But worked especially well for me in this because it's again that like feeling of just hopelessness where part of that comes from too is you can think even if you're like in a lot of Lovecraftian stories like the one going insane, that on some level there still exists this like, even if they're oblivious, there's just at least a outside world of, let's say, oblivious people with their reality that is still safe. But to bring it up to the level where like there's nowhere to run, you can't hide.
Right.
So he walks into a movie theater. It's great.
Right.
But just that's an extra level that I think really works for this story versus it just being like, you know, there's still the insane asylum is just still being run or whatever, just to give that, again, that sense of no escape.
There's always in this construct, there's always an aspect, I think, or an overtone of, you know, resistance versus acceptance. And like in this example, it's, you know, his character is constantly being like, no, I know how it is, right? I know it's a scam. I know it's a, you know, it's all set up. It's all that shit. And only after he's like really gone through the shit and like completely, quote unquote, lost his mind, do the doors open back up for him. Yeah. And then he can just go fucking wander around and like have a laugh at a movie. Yeah.
Somehow be one of the last survivors in this world.
And I think that there's just something nice. Maybe it's just that message is always a nice sort of cathartic thing to be like, you know, or it's almost like a cautionary sort of tale construct of like, look, don't be so fucking sure about everything. And like, you know, once you let go of these resistant sort of ways of looking at the world and just kind of lean more into acceptance.
Yeah, that did give him a bit of an arc. You're right.
Right. That like you're better off, right? Like that's a nice sort of undertone message.
Which is what I'm saying to people, Tim.
Okay.
The world's squiggly.
It is, isn't it?
This is not real.
That's right. You know what's really not real is this blew my mind when I was taught this. Nothing ever touches anything.
See?
Right?
Yeah.
We have a perception of that, but in actuality, there's always space between every atom.
We're all just little wavy lines of energy.
What the fuck, dude? Trippy.
I loved the when Sutter Cane is defeated, whatever. When do you remember he stands against the door and like tears the door like with himself.
Oh, dude.
And it like turns into a giant page of his book.
Right.
Which is the book of the movie we're watching. Just all that stuff was so cool.
Oh man, you know what it reminded me of?
Yep.
Is Ghost Stories. Fuck yeah.
Exactly.
Breaking reality like that in a physical way, like a tactile physical way for the characters in the movie is always so fucking pleasing to me.
Don't see it very much too.
No. I fucking love that shit. That's, you know, for me, that's pretty much it.
Right. I think it's all I have. I just wish I just love this movie. I want to say more, but I think that's kind of it for now. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Really? That's it for you? You seem like
I'm trying to replay everything. I think that's it for me too. We've covered everything I can remember.
I like all the actors in it. Mm-hmm. Like everyone. Oh, Vigo from Ghostbusters 2.
Oh my God. We need to talk about that in Things of Note.
Okay.
I should have done a deeper dive on it, but whatever.
The Doberman Pinchers as Sutter Cane's like demon dogs.
Yeah.
Just the monster design throughout is cool. I love how it is like subtle, like when he's in the bookshop, like there's someone with just a few scratches on his face and maybe like a kind of weird zit thing or something where you just know something's, what did this person just go through? But just that as sort of like a first step in whatever escalation to them turning into like monster people. I don't know, just interesting. I'm like body deformity.
Yeah.
Like seeing the early stages of the people being monsterized was disturbing. Because it's like they're still the person on some level. I don't know.
Metamorphosis is always fucking cool and fun and creepy and
yeah.
I love it.
And it's horrifying as far as that, you know, even with your example of the being afraid of demons and being possessed or whatever, that there's, I mean, yeah, horrifying, of course, but at least it's like you're either possessed or you aren't. You know, here there's that scary in between of like a person be sort of like The Stuff when we watched, like at what point does the person stop being them? Like, you know, are they, because in this we sort of see, oh, here they're just maybe 5% evil taken over when they're just those initial scratches, and then they become full-fledged monsters. Are there still any semblance of them left? Is there a way to save them? It's just like there's no, that line is complete. There is no line.
Yeah.
And that's an extra layer of scary as far as that level of disease. That's why it's more like disease of getting slowly infected,
right?
Versus the you either are possessed or you're not.
Man, yikes!
And yikes indeed. Next section.
Sure.
All right. What did not work?
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
I'm like torn about this, but it's kind of what I said before. It's like not having the like almost the what would you call that? Like the bookends of where this all lives. In other words, here's an example of a movie that's very similar in that sort of construct. You know, Jacob's Ladder?
I haven't seen it in since middle school. I forget it.
The opening scene and the end scene essentially say, okay,
I don't want to know.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, it sort of gives context to the craziness.
Well, we have,
and this doesn't have that in as concrete of a way. And there was a part of me that's like, oh, I want it. Like, I wanted there to be this sort of zoom out from this and go, oh shit.
That's what makes it work so well for me.
But I agree.
Yeah.
That I think that it's easy to latch onto ways that this type of story have been done differently and assume that that's better.
Because again, that's a safety net. Like here, we're given what we are hoping is the framework of just, this is just a story of a guy in a mental asylum telling his story. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But once we catch up to what would be the bookend of him back in the asylum at the end, it's like, no, he's right. It's all the evil has taken over, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's I don't know. I think it's cool how it takes what you just said as far as like a bookend model, but then throws it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, yeah, I mean.
I will agree. Like, I mean, yeah, I guess I disagree with that one, but what I thought, I feel like it's just growing on me. Maybe this will be less an issue as it goes on, but there's just something about like the ebb and flow of the plotting where it doesn't feel like we sort of have, like, I don't know, I almost want more like, it's hard because it is this kind of great moment after great moment at a certain point and just kind of keeps ramping up. But something about it feels like it doesn't breathe much, or there's no sort of like signature events. I mean, they are there. I don't know how to explain it, but just something about the ebb and flow. It doesn't feel sloggy. It just feels kind of like I'm not as much being taken for a ride, you know? Mm-hmm. But then that is also what works for me about is you're just sort of slowly getting trapped and it's bleh, you know? So it's like, this is a worked and didn't work for me. Was that the plotting like made me feel horrified and uncomfortable, but at the same time, it like maybe felt a little short on just the kind of like movie, like in a more typical sense, delivery of the plotting and the action. I don't know.
I just had a thought. I think part of what I'm wanting is a little more like context as to what the book that this takes place in is getting at. Like, what's the story in the book?
Yeah.
Because if you had a little more context of what, and like you were even told like, oh, the end of the book is this or something like that. Not necessarily the end, but like the conceit of the book or whatever. If that was a little more handed out, then when he's experiencing these things, if we've been clued into them a little bit, like if somebody had said like, this new book is about, you know, humans being infected and turning into monsters, maybe not so just literally saying that, but suggesting or giving us some sort of clue as to that when it starts happening, you start to go, ooh, he's fucked. Now, I understand why you do it the way that it's done here is because we really just stay on board with his point of view.
Yeah.
We're not really getting another angle in to then worry for him.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but I like it when we get that in certain stories where we get to, you know, sort of say, don't fucking go around that corner because we know and he doesn't know. And the fun is watching him not know.
I think I agree with, and that is kind of what I was trying to get at. Was that there's, could you use like one more thing to think you're being able to hang your hat on.
Right. And if you have that, then you can fuck with it.
Yeah.
So
just something that sort of gave us a sense of trajectory a little more,
right,
to then pull more out from under us.
Yeah.
I think that's where it is. Really? Okay. So,
well,
yes.
An example, I think, this is a very different movie, but a similar framework of like the journey to go find the missing person.
Yeah.
Is Apocalypse Now. And so like when we get to Kurtz or whatever the fuck his name is, Kurtz, when we get to him, he's A, not what we were expecting at all. And B, we get to have some like actual holy fuck, what is this new world we're in? And like, where is this dude? Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like we get that with the meeting of Sutter in this. Like, it feels like it's still sort of just not a throwaway, but it's like it doesn't feel grounded in any sort of, not revelation, but any sort of like, oh shit.
I don't know. It worked for me, like, as far as Sutter's reveal, where it was like, he is an example of something that's already like far gone. Like, we don't have him as an anchor point. Like, he's questionably a person at this point, you know?
True. Yeah. I think there's something for me in Sutter Cane that doesn't land enough. Mm-hmm. I think I don't know how else to put it, because I don't know what would make it feel like it landed more. It might just be that he's in a weird room.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. Like I almost want him to be in a more real space in that moment, so that we feel like, okay, shit, even though a bunch of weird shit's been going on, now we're back in like what seems to be a real tactile like room. Mm-hmm. And if that room then starts to fucking go wonky,
if the church,
that's even more fucked up.
If the church had felt a little more safe initially somehow, versus like a warning sign immediately.
Right.
But at the same time, I liked that. I liked this sort of like, once you walk in, you're damned. You know?
Well, it's weird because they do it for like a second.
Yeah.
Where he opens the door and it's just a room. And, oh man, is that right? The first time he opens the door, it's just a room and nobody's in it. It's like a little office. It's like a pastor's sort of office. And then they close the door and then he opens it again and it's like Sutter Cane behind a desk in this fucking weird
I like though
melty wall thing.
He keeps a close, it makes sense that he has a close proximity to this gateway or whatever, you know?
Right.
Like he's been corrupted and this is the space of which it happens.
I guess I'm just sort of, like, it would be more pleasing to me to watch a real space devolve into that slowly in that sequence.
That's kind of what the town is as a whole, using the hotel as an anchor.
But that's what I mean is I think use that construct in a microcosm in this room.
Yeah.
That would have made me go, whoa, fuck,
right.
yes.
Like instead of the door just pulsating from the get-go, it's, you know, looks innocuous at first.
Because it really is we're getting really inside the sort of final breakdown.
And maybe this is where I meant where
Sam Neill's brain.
I agree, as far as it did feel like it sort of hit the fast forward button in that air.
Like in Shocker?
No, not quite like in Shocker. No, just plotting wise. Maybe that's what I was getting at, where I could have used like an extra 10 minutes in this movie, maybe, 5 minutes.
Like, don't you want in that moment where it's like some fucking crazy ass shit has gone down, don't you kind of want this moment? I think it is what you're saying. You want this kind of moment, like respite from all of that, where it's like suddenly you can take a breath because it feels like you're safe again.
Or at least not so much safe, but we've reached another revelation or another sort of advancement in our searching.
I would have loved to have that moment be really like close in a real room, and Sam Neill kind of finally goes like, what the fuck is going on? And Sutter Cane is like totally chill, and he's like, I get it, man.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. And I know it's been fucking weird, and like, just let's all just take a fucking minute. And as he starts to talk about it in some sort of rational
nonsense,
he starts to fucking melt, or the room starts to melt, or shit just starts to get weird. And you see Sam Neill go, oh fuck.
Just that one little last beat of false safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would have fucking sealed it.
Okay, I think this all connects to my main what did not work for me, which is no fault of the movie itself. I think they could have done more stuff like that and probably wanted to if they had a bigger budget.
Sure.
So that's my only what didn't work is that it was...
I didn't even look. What
it was cut from a $15 million budget to either a $10 or $8 million budget.
Woof. That's tough.
Right?
Especially then.
Right? So I'm just thinking of
That's really hard.
Imagine that extra. It's like essentially the budget was cut in half. So imagine it with that much more breathing room budget wise. I just feel like it would have had that much more breathing room than the movie. And that's what didn't work, which again, I say is no fault of the movie as far as being on this scale. Like I like to think you use ingenuity to just work with whatever budget you have. But this story... I don't know. It seemed like would have been better at that 15 million level.
For context, in 1990, so 4 years earlier, Home Alone was made for $14.7 million, and they originally were given $10 million. And when they went over, I think it was whoever had them initially, they ended up at Fox. Maybe it was Paramount or somebody, I don't remember. But the original studio that had them for $10 million, when they went over that budget, pulled the plug.
Yep.
And Fox knew that was probably going to happen and knew what they were at, but liked the movie enough that they swooped in and they scooped it up and did it for basically 15. So that's 5 years earlier doing Home Alone. Like Home Alone's not, not that fucking extensive budgetary needs, right? And they couldn't even make that movie for 10.
Yeah.
And so to try and make this 5 years later...
When you have full-on, like, monster effects and everything.
For fucking less?
Yeah.
Woof.
That was the thing, too. And again, just the budget. Like, I could tell the effects in this didn't seem as good as The Thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they felt limited.
So I hate that it's that way to, like, knock it for that, but... that's just how the dice had fallen for this one.
Yeah. Bummer. Well, I mean, honestly, I don't have a whole lot either. I don't love the female lead.
I like her a lot.
I don't know what it is, but
she's endearing in her kind of like weirdness, but
I like the character.
Yeah.
I'm just not thrilled about I think she feels stiff to me. I think that's really all it comes down to. The actor just feels kind of stiff.
I don't know. I liked her.
Whatever.
We don't have to fish for things, Tim.
I don't really have anything extensive other than that.
Great
question mark of.
I feel like we were able to navigate that in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So let's go to our next section.
Yeah, we should.
Things of note.
This should be interesting.
Did you want to tell us about Vigo?
I mean, I might be misremembering a little bit, but I felt like I remember hearing a story about what a fucking, like, kind of maniac he was. But I'm very quickly just going through the Wikipedia.
We're talking about the guy who played Vigo in Ghostbusters 2 is in this movie as a kind of a sympathetic character.
Yeah. What's
his name?
Wilhelm von Homburg. And, he's a German boxer. I think that's what I'm remembering. He had a real fucking reputation for being just a fucking brute.
Yeah.
Shocking, right? Like, look at his face. But I felt like I was remembering that he had, like, killed somebody or some crazy shit. But maybe that's somebody else. But... So here's the thing, and I think that you can take a deeper dive into this, but here's the sentence that I think is significant and what I'm remembering. So von Homburg and his father eventually had a falling out when Richard, I assume his father Richard, accused von Homburg of raping his stepmother. And I'm pretty sure that's what I'm remembering, that there was like a pretty intense case of like him being accused and like not knowing, like it's a mess, but that he's got a very interesting deeper dive kind of backstory. And I don't know if that was a true accusation or that he and his father just had a really fucked up relationship or what, but go look it up.
Because you couldn't,
because I couldn't fast enough. I feel like I heard about this on like My Favorite Murder or something, and they went deep into it.
All right. I got a couple from, I mentioned I listened to the commentary. Mm-hmm. Or no, I read about the commentary track. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Fair.
I want the Blu-ray so I can listen to it. Apparently the commentary, it's way more of a technical commentary if you're interested in that, because it's him and the DP.
Cool.
But they had to shrink the budget down like 7 million or whatever. But apparently one of the big cuts was a third act sequence that saw the entire town being swallowed up into the book. Writer Michael DeLuca instead came up with the idea of the book paper illusion that sees Sutter Cane rip himself like a page in the book.
Cool.
So interesting to see how that came about. And then I liked this factoid. Carpenter's favorite line in the film is, "Reality's not what it used to be."
Cool.
Yeah.
I like this factoid that Hayden Christensen, per our conversation earlier about Star Wars, was a paperboy.
In this movie?
Yep.
It better be in this movie, otherwise.
No, it is. I'm looking at it.
I'm joshing you. Just with your asides.
You're Hayden and me.
That's all I had.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
I mean, I also put, what we mentioned earlier, how I just thought it was interesting how they made the choice of mentioning Stephen King by name.
For sure.
That was cool.
For sure. God, I would love to make like a Lovecraft, like old New England, turn of the century, something or other. Woo!
Maybe
that'd be fun.
Yeah, I'm going to, on that, have a recommendation.
Nice.
Related to that.
I just want to real quick, not that this is not known, but like just think about John Carpenter's
oeuvre.
Well, his, what do you call it? The movies he's made.
Oeuvre.
Yeah. Like, it's pretty fucking ridiculous, the like his filmography. So Dark Star, have you seen Dark Star? His first one?
No,
Dude, it's fun. It's cool.
I've seen clips from it.
It's fucking,
I know what it is.
Yeah, it's wild. Assault on Precinct 13, I think he got that just like, it's like when Chris Nolan had to do Insomnia to make his other shit.
I remember not being too crazy about that one.
Halloween, obviously. The Fog, which is great. Escape from New York, which is nuts.
Just rewatched that. I loved it.
Right? The Thing. I forgot that he did Christine.
Yeah. The King Connection.
Yep. Starman, which is weird. Big Trouble in Little China. I just never think of that as his movie.
Really?
Like, I don't know why.
But the main character is like such a John Carpenter, They Live type.
It's weird. But yeah, it's like I knew it, but whatever. Then Prince, like you're saying, so Prince of Darkness is the middle of the trilogy. They Live, which is fucking great because it is. I've never seen this, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, the Chevy Chase one.
I haven't seen it either.
I don't know if it's supposed to be good or bad.
I don't know.
I know of it. Anyway, then In the Mouth of Madness, Village of the Damned, Escape from L.A., and then Vampires, Ghost of Mars. I tried to watch Ghost of Mars. It's not good. Sorry. But man, those first,
and now
10, 15... No, just the first 20 years of the shit that he made was, woo boy.
And producing and writing
amazing
Halloween
shit.
Too.
Right.
And now he is occasionally tours his music.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Are you done with your...
I'm done.
Let's do no more In the Mouth of Madness. Let's do our recommendations.
Okay.
Shall I go?
Sure.
Okay. I had another one. I'll save it for next week. Because I just remembered, Tim, if you're into this stuff, if you somehow have the ability to access a Gamecube.
Oh my God.
You or you listening out there at a
Gamecube.
You gotta play a Lovecraftian game. It was great, called Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem.
Wow.
And this game was so cool.
Sounds light.
It's so neat because it was all about had that exact framework of what you're saying, where it's like back in that Lovecraft time, whenever that is. And like you're starting out in a mystery, you know, where you're like in a house having to like pick up books off the wall or whatever. But then it plays out where you're reading about these past characters going through their own Lovecraftian like stories, you know, learning more and more about the mystery afoot, and that's who you play as. So you're playing through history as all these different characters, like that all add up to this overall story. And what's so cool is then the game itself does the sort of what is real, what isn't, like horror thing, where it's from just sort of fun stuff of like, oh yeah, so you know in video games you have your health bar and whatever else. This one you have your health bar and you also have your sanity bar. And like when that
I feel like you've told me about this before.
It's great. As you get more insane, like maybe you'll like walk into a room and all of a sudden you like your body will just fall apart and you'll be like, what? Or maybe like bugs will crawl on the screen as if it is your screen and it like looks that way.
Shit.
My favorite though, my friend Jesse, listener of the show, he was playing it once and it like came on where he was like saving his game or whatever, and it acted as if like he had moved the joystick the wrong way and accidentally hit like delete files. So it was like tricking him as to that all the save files were being deleted, and he just like freaked out because he thought that he had just deleted my game. But it's like the game, it shows that the files are deleted.
So twisted.
And then I just remember going like, oh fuck, oh shit, oh shit. And then like the screen flashes and it's all back, and he just went like, you know? Like how cool.
I love that.
For a game to do that.
That's awesome.
I don't know how you can play it. I hope it gets somehow, you know.
You've got to be able to get a hold of it.
Well, just
right, like I mean, theoretically,
yes, you can buy a GameCube and games.
No. I mean, I bet you there's a way to find it online somehow.
ROMs.
Yeah, something.
I just hope it gets the sort of like update treatment that games get nowadays.
That'd be cool.
Of the remaster.
Yeah.
Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. Check it out if you can.
Sweet. Okay, so here's mine. This is truly horrible, horrifying,
horrifyingable.
And I can't stop watching it. It's on Netflix. It's a show, and it's called Botched Up Bodies. And it's a BBC show about what you would expect. People who had like plastic surgery that went wrong.
Tim.
And then them going in to have that, try to get it like corrected. And holy fuck, dude. I thought I had a pretty good threshold for like body horror stuff, but this is obviously real. And they show everything. It's BBC. There's no blurring out. They're not editing around things. Like, there's a couple women who get, like, their vaginas were, like, butchered from, like, having, I forget what it's called, like, labiectomy or something like that, to try and make their labia look prettier.
Tim, let me stop you. Why are you recommending it?
Oh, dude, because it's so fucking intense and, like, crazy.
Great.
I, like, spend almost every episode like clenched up. And then and a couple times I was watching it late, like midnight or whatever, and was like, this is the worst thing I should be watching before I go to bed. Like, it's a horrible idea. And I'm sure my neighbors are like, what the fuck is going on in there? Because every once in a while, as you may know, I'll just start yelling. Oh! Like, I had dental stuff done in my life that was unpleasant. And there are a couple fucking dental people, like people who have like think about this. One guy had, when they put dental implants in, they're literally screwing metal into your jawbone, like the upper jaw. Well, this guy, the guy who did it for this dude, missed the bone. So these screws are just in his gums, but like floating. So the teeth that had been implanted were like movable. They're just loose. And he had to get all that shit extracted and then re-put into the bone. And they show fucking everything. And it is way too much.
Perfect for you.
Maybe the perfect amount. It is fucking intense. So, if you're into that thing, get into it.
Check it out.
Botched Up Bodies.
Great. Well, Next is, I think, one of our favorite parts of the show, Tim. And I believe it's your turn.
Is it?
No.
No, it's your turn,
It's
right?
my turn.
Yeah.
You pulled in the Mouth of Madness.
I did.
Right. We're pulling our movie for next week, folks. What's it going to be? Oh, you wanted this one. Shivers.
Ooh, Shivers.
Cronenberg. 75.
Yes.
Cool.
Oh, shit. I still have to watch The Brood.
Yes, you do. You have my Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll do that today.
Some good stuff.
You know what else I still have to watch? I Saw the Devil.
I know. Yeah, this is the
damn
part
it.
of the show where I'm supposed to ask Tim if he's seen I Saw the Devil
I
yet.
haven't. Fuck.
Tim's new favorite movie. Great. Well, you should, if you haven't seen Shivers, you should watch it.
Yeah.
And join us next week. Until then, you can find us at dismemberinghorror.com.
You can email us at dismemberinghorror@gmail.com.
Yeah, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. That helps us out. Tell a friend, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In closing, thank you for listening.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.